Alright, in this video we're going to be looking at openfiler. We're going to do a quick install of the openfiler operating system, and then we're going to see how we can attach to it through the various means. We'll probably look at it through Samba, I would imagine, and FTP, but we can also attach to it using NFS as we talked about in class. So I've done a little bit of prep work here, and I'm just going to talk you through that, and then we'll get stuck straight into it. As you can see in my virtual box manager, I've created an openfiler instance, and so this is going to be where our operating system goes, and we'll go into settings and just have a quick look through what I've done. If we go to storage, you'll see that I've created 4 hard drives. The first one's going to be my operating system for the openfiler operating system. Second, third and fourth hard drive are going to be my array, and so I'm going to set up array 5 with these hard drives, and so I've prepped all those. They're 20 gig each. This one's just 8 gig just to hold the operating system, and then I've also selected the ISO that I'm going to be using, and so that is openfiler 2.3. Now I'm going to stick 2 of these ISO images up on the server, and I'll point you to where they are later on. One will be 64-bit, the other one will be 32-bit. You'll need to choose the appropriate one. So this is a 64-bit operating system that I'm running my VirtualBox on, my VirtualBox manager, and so therefore I can run this ISO. But if you're running a 32-bit operating system, then you're obviously going to need to choose the other ISO, so just be aware of that. I've gone into my network settings and I've set it to bridged, and it'll pick up on ETH0, and that's all we really need to do in here. So just the storage, setting up these settings here, which we've done a few times now, choosing my ISO I should say, and there's my ISO, and then creating these hard drives. To create a hard drive, I've just gone into SATA controller and selected a new hard drive, create, and then gone through that wizard in order to do that. So quite easy stuff there. So once that's done and you're happy with that, we can actually start it up. And the installation process is quite easy. It's basically follow the bouncing ball, but we're going to go through it, and I'll highlight the areas that are issues. So we want to just enter on the graphical mode, so we're going to press enter on our keyboards. The base operating system is Red Hat, and so when I selected what kind of operating system to install in VirtualBox, I did select Red Hat, and we'll see how that goes. So we don't want to test the CD media, we know that it works okay, so we can skip that process. Alright, so now we're presented again with a wizard, and we can go through this process together. So we're going to click on next. US English for the keyboard is fine. It's now going to want to go through the partitioner in order to partition the hard drives, and so we're going to go for automatically partition. And it recognizes that there isn't a readable partition on the first hard drive, and so we're just going to go yes to that. And it recognizes that there's not one on the secondary drive, or the third drive, or the fourth drive. So we can do one or the other. We can actually say yes or no to this, because we're actually going to configure those drives later. So I'm just going to say yes and yes to those, all those drives. So that all those drives now appear in my table, but I'm going to play around in here now and change things up a bit. So the first thing I want to do is remove all partitions on this system, just to show you what we can and can't do. So in the previous screen I actually told it to create those partitions. Now I'm just going to tell them to delete it, and I'm going to go through and remove the ticks on the 3 hard drives that are going to be a part of my array, because I want to configure those later when I'm actually in the operating system. So for now I'm just going to be playing around with SDA, which is my 8 gig hard drive that my operating system is going to go on. I want to remove all partitions on the system, and we're ready to go. So I'll just hit next, and we'll select yes. You have chosen to remove all partitions, that's fine. And there we go. So now it has configured my first hard drive, SDA, and it's given me a boot partition, it's given me a root partition, and it's given me a swap file. And we're ready to go to the next level, or the next step. At this point I'm just going to accept DHCP. We can set a static IP address, that would be the ideal, but for this test I'm just going to allow it to give me an IP address. Select the area that we're from, Australia, Sydney, time zone. Okay, root password. Now this password that I'm putting in now is our standard password. So password 1. And the reason why I'm using this is because the password needs to be something that we always remember, and if anything ever goes wrong, someone else can log in. So in the classroom environment this is fine, but obviously in the real world it wouldn't be. And this password, username and password root, gets me into the console, gets me into the actual operating system. It's not the password that I'm going to use to log on to the web interface, as we'll see a little bit later on. Okay, we'll just select next now, and it's now going to go through the installation process. As I just mentioned, the password we use for logging onto the web interface is created. It's created through this installation process, and so the username is openfiler and the password is just password. We can change that later on, but that's the default. So openfiler to log into the web interface, and password is password. If we want to get into the console, into the operating system itself, then we're going to use root, and we're going to use password 1. I'm just going to let it go through the installation process now, and we'll be back in a moment.